Hi guys, Grand J here and welcome to another one of our videos. Recently there were a couple more Opus V cards spoiled, so we'll be talking about them today. Two cards recently were revealed, they're both water cards and they both seem pretty good. So let's get started. So the first card that was revealed, and this one was revealed on the official FFTCG website, is Refia. It is a free cost forward at 7,000 power, so it is on curve. Job Warrior Light forwards and water forwards other than Refia you control gain plus 1,000 power. Also, it's got a secondary ability, dull a total of 5 active water forwards or water backups. Choose one forward your opponent controls, return it to its owner's hand. So let's break it down. First of all, this card is on curve, so as a body by itself, it's already pretty good. Its first ability to give all your warrior lights and water forwards plus 1,000 is already really good. Mono Water has been a strong deck in the metagame for a long time, and this card just slots right in. Giving all your water forwards plus 1,000 power makes all those 3,000 7Ks, 3,000 8K, and yeah, just giving them all plus 1,000 is really good by itself. Also, it gives Warrior Light forwards plus 1,000 power as well, so it looks like this set will have some of the Warrior Light cards returning into the game as well. So potentially we might see some sort of deck that's built around Refia and all her sort of Warrior Light forwards as well. So the first effect is really strong, giving plus 1,000 power. The synergy between this card and the Light Warrior of Light is already really strong. They work towards each other. Refia gives Warrior Light plus 1,000 power, and then Warrior Light gives Refia the ability to prevent every blocker damage by 2,000. So that's really good by itself. Next, the ability to dull 5 active forwards or backups to return one of your opponent's forwards to your hand. This is a fantastic card, especially towards the late game, especially when you're trying to push for those last bits of damage. And Water is one of those decks that does want to build up a lot of its backups because there's so many quality backups that Water has, such as Yuna, such as Minwu, such as Waka. There's so many great backups for Mono Water, and also it builds into the Knight strategy with Lena. And so yeah, this deck is already going to have 5 backups most of the time, and being able to convert those 5 backups to have effectively a Leviathan effect is really strong. The fact that Refia doesn't have to dull herself, and the fact that it states just dull forwards means that Refia can use this ability on the turn that she does enter play, so she does have a high amount of speed there. If you have 5 backups, if you discard one card, tap one backup to put Refia into play, you can still use her ability straight away. You can tap down the 4 remaining backups you have, and this Refia to get that Leviathan ability straight away, also giving you guys plus 1,000 power as well. Towards the late game, especially in those situations where the board is a little bit stalemated and the water player has a couple of forwards but they can't get over 1 or 2 of the opponent's big forwards, this card is just a constant renewable threat to be able to bounce your opponent's forwards. Also, it gives a slight amount of protection against certain lightning cards that can only choose active forwards as well. So this is a great card. Its first ability is going to be relevant anytime during the game, especially around the mid game, but its secondary ability is going to be really good if it's ever played in a mono water deck, especially towards the late game where you are running out of outs, or in a situation where you don't want to commit too many forwards on the board. You can just use your excess CP or excess backups to just return your opponent's forwards. Threatening this basically gives Water a huge amount of tempo and control in the late game, and this Refia is just going to slot right into Water. Because Water has a tendency to swarm the field already, with cards such as Lena, which brings in another forward such as Fame Mimic Go-Go or Knight, Refia is often going to be able to use her ability to full effect. So this card is really good, synergizes with the rest of the Water package. The only problem with this card though is that it is a free cost 7,000 power forward, and Water is a deck that already has so many quality free cost forwards already. In between Beatrix, Garnet, and Ash, they're all really strong, and because Steiner is kind of a pseudo free drop as well, there's so many free drops in Water that it's going to be difficult for Refia to find a place in the deck. So I'm not sure if she will see free copies per deck, and if she does, then we might see potentially Garnet being pushed out of a bit of the limelight for Water as well. Yeah. Also, secondarily, it makes Water a little bit more weaker to Exodus. So Lightning does have a summon where the player gets to choose a cost, and then all forwards of that cost are destroyed. So yeah, if Refia is along the field with Garnet or Cognazo or Ash, then potentially the Lightning player playing Exodus is able to wipe all of them out in one go. But besides from that minor weakness of just having a certain number as a cost, Refia is a fantastic card. Next, we have another spoiler, and this was spoiled by a magazine in Japan, created by Hobby Japan, and recently this was also revealed on the Crystal Tower as well. So, big thanks to Band's Fantasy Corner for translating this for us. So we have a monster called Ozma. It is a 5-cost unique monster. So this is a monster that you can't have multiple copies of this monster on the field. So yeah, it is a unique monster. Pay 0 until the end of the turn. Ozma becomes an 8,000 power forward. Until the end of the turn, Ozma does not receive damage from Dark Element. You can only use this ability once per turn. Also, it's got a secondary ability in Flare Star. So S Water 2 Dull. Until the end of the turn, all forwards your opponent control lose 2,000 power for each CP they cost. You can only use this ability when Ozma is a forward. So a couple of things to break down. So first of all, this is one of the first monsters, or one of the first cards that we have in general that has a pay 0 cost. So effectively, it can turn itself into forward for free, and being a 5 cost monster that can turn itself into an 8,000 power forward, puts it basically alongside other 4 cost forwards, with the advantages of being a monster. So it is searchable, and yeah, it is invulnerable to removal abilities while it's still a monster. Its secondary ability, Flare Star, is actually pretty strong against higher cost forwards. So usually 4 cost forwards are 8,000 power. So this card's S ability has potential to just wipe them straight away. Anything that's 5, 10, 5, 8, 6 costs, these are all generally going to be destroyed instantly with this card's ability. 3 cost 7Ks won't, but they will get put down to 1,000 power, and anything less is generally going to be safe from this ability, although they become effectively weak to a point where they can't really defend. Obviously, this combos really well with Cagnazzo, so especially if you play this in a water deck, reducing all your opponent's forwards to basically 1,000, 2,000 power, and then using a Cagnazzo to wipe them all out is really, really good, so it gives them an ability to do this. One thing to note that this card is, its category is Theater Rhythm / FF9, so EX Burst Steiner can search for it, so it is a Final Fantasy IX character, and Steiner can search for it. It's unlikely that we'll have more than 1 copy of Ozma in the game, so we will be relying on 3 copies of Ozma if we do want to use this card. But with Steiner's EX ability, being able to search out for a secondary copy of him is actually very, very doable. At some point, you'll play Steiner or EX versus Steiner, you can get a secondary copy of Ozma into your hand, and then you're always able to threaten Flare Star. Do note that because his ability can only be used while he's a forward, he cannot use his S ability the same turn that he enters play, because once he becomes a forward, he's restricted by Summoning Sickness. He cannot use his dull ability straight away. So do note that. Yeah, in terms of being a monster, there are not many pieces of cards that are seeing play at the moment that can remove Ozma. Typically, one of the main pieces of monster removal in the game right now is Dragon, which is a lightning monster, but it only is able to destroy monsters of cost 4 or less. Then another card that can potentially destroy this is the Summon Alexander, but that card really has kind of fallen out of favor, and unless your opponent is playing that card, Ozma is generally going to be safe while he is a monster, and people aren't playing Ahriman, so I don't think that that is going to be a threat. So in general, Ozma is going to be pretty safe. His ability to turn himself into a forward that can't receive damage from Dark Element is a little bit less relevant in the Opus metagame, simply because generally the only Dark forward that we generally see is the Emperor, and while the Emperor is on the field, Ozma is unable to use its ability to turn itself into a forward, so it's kind of dead against the Emperor. But if you ever do run into a Shadow Lord, then this card is a great way to block that, in the very niche circumstances that your opponent is playing Shadow Lord. So yeah, this card seems pretty strong, but definitely it has to be built into very specific decks. The fact that it is a monster means that there's plenty of other ways to search for it, such as using something like Umaro to search for a monster from your deck, or Kefka, the Dark Kefka. So there are alternative ways to search this card. This is going to be one of those cards that you can actually pull off quite regularly, its S ability. But yeah, it will be based upon certain very monster-specific decks, and I'm looking forward to see players determine how they're going to play this card. But it definitely brings a very strong sort of time-bomby sort of effect after it does come onto the field, and being able to transform itself into a forward whenever you want. Having that invulnerability of not being a forward unless you choose it to be a forward is also pretty good there. So yeah, so that's Ozma. I'm a little bit tossing up on this card. I'm not sure how good it is going to be at the moment. Right now, I'm a little bit conservative because it doesn't really destroy small forwards. It only punishes particularly large forwards. And yeah, and water does have ways to deal with wide boards, such as characters such a Cloud of Darkness. So I'm not sure if Ozma really sort of brings much into that archetype. Potentially, if we do see other decks that do require a board wipey sort of effect, potentially Ice could run it, because Ice could run something like Umaro or Kefka to search for him in some sort of water ice deck. Then this might potentially be another way for ice decks to deal with those big forwards, especially because the forwards that I struggle with tend to be those Earth 4 cost 8,000 power forwards, such as guys such as Dadaluma. So this is a potentially good way to deal with it. So yeah, that's it for all for all the cards for this Opus 5 preview. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Yeah, feel free to post your feedbacks or thoughts into the comment section below. I'm going to be putting up videos and stuff way more often now, so definitely do check back regularly. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys think, and Grand J out.